All right. In this video, I'm going to show you how to go through the steps to start looking for articles for your rapid evidence review. The first step that you want to complete is stating your research question. And here we learned that we want to have very specific research questions. We want to have them be pretty narrow. You can have just one. Maybe you could have two or three if you like, but you don't have to. In this case, I have two research questions, and I want to have you guys indicate not only the research question, but what type of research question it is from the types that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. If you're going to have more than one research question, make sure that they are all kind of in the same family, so to speak. So in my case, I want to have one descriptive research question. How do we define burnout, or how is burnout defined? Is probably a better way to put it. And that's a descriptive question, asking for some indications of what burnout looks like. What does it feel like? Then we also have, what are the strongest predictors of burnout? And in this case, we're depicting a relationship between a cluster of independent variables and one dependent variable. So this is a relational research question, and I want to compare a couple of different independent variables to see which ones are the most strongly related to burnout as my outcome, my dependent variable. The next part of this process is determining what databases you want to use. And for our rapid evidence review, we're just going to use the JMU databases that we have available because we're JMU students and that's something that we have access to. If you're no longer a JMU student and you want to do something like this, which I'm sure many of you are itching to do, then there are different databases through the Center for Evidence-Based Management, for example, that practitioners can access even if they're not affiliated with an institution. Additionally, more and more papers are being published as open access to increase the availability of scientific literature to people who are not affiliated with the university. But in our case, we'll just use the JMU database for now, and that will be just fine. So to find your databases, you'll Google JMU Library, click on databases, that'll take you right there. And I think most of you will want to use Business Source Complete as the go-to database for business articles. We can find a description of Business Source Complete here, and this will help us justify our use of this database. So one thing I want you to do in your rapid evidence reviews is explain why you used the database that you used so that someone else could go and reproduce the search. So we know we want to use Business Source Complete, but in my case, I also think that a psychology-based repository will be helpful for me too, because burnout is kind of a field or a subject that is studied by applied psychologists. If you kind of are studying something more in the realm of organizational behavior, then you might want to use a psychology database as well. In my case, I'm thinking I'm going to use APA PsycInfo. If you have something related to OB, APA PsycInfo will be just fine. And my justification is that it includes psychology research, including applied psychology. In order to actually access the databases, here I just click on Business Source Complete. This will give me this one database. But fortunately, we're able to also add different databases so that we can search multiple at the same time. They're not all there. I think some different databases like LexisNexis might not be on here, but you don't have to worry about that because you're not using that most likely. I go down and I see APA PsycInfo as the go-to database for psychology and OB related research, and I click on that. It's best if you click on it before you start your searching, because if you have to add a database afterwards, it will remove your search term. So it's a little annoying. All right, so that's step B under our belt. And my notes, what I'm writing, are in red, and the red text is something, it's an example of something similar to what you might write for your rapid evidence review. Then we need to start actually coming up with our search terms. And this is something that might be a little bit tricky if the terms that the scientific community uses to study your topic is maybe different than the colloquial terms that we may use in kind of more everyday language. And so there are some techniques and tools that you can use to try to narrow down your search a little bit, or to rather find synonyms for the thing that you're actually interested in. I recommend that you just try a simple Google search, right? You could search it for burnout. As we'll see, you're not going to have much of a problem with that, because burnout is such a recognizable word inside and outside of academia. But let's imagine we are interested in sustainability and businesses, whether or not they're sustainable. We could try typing and seeing what comes up from just a Google search. We see corporate sustainability, and that might actually be, if that was our topic, that would be a word that we would use. So in this step C, what you're really doing is trying to come up with any possible synonyms that might help you with your search process, so that you can see, are there terms that maybe increase the results that I get and give me better, more usable results. So if we're interested in sustainability, we might tack that on there as a potential word that we might use. And we kind of already see these sort of Harvard Business School things coming up. This isn't Harvard Business Review, but it's still a publication from a university. So it could be helpful to peruse there. And we do see ESG. And I know that ESG is a metric that is used acronym rather, that's used frequently to indicate sustainability. So that's just from a Google search. We could also look at Wall Street Journal and see what Wall Street Journal has to say about it. They here have a bunch of titles of articles written on sustainability in business. And we can kind of see these titles to see if there's any words that stand out here as well. Again, we see ESG. So that to me says that we should include ESG in our search terms. ESG, again, fortifying this view that ESG might be a helpful search term for us if we had a trickier terms to use. You could instead try looking for Harvard Business Review in the JMU database. So we have access to that because we belong to JMU. And what I'm going to do is indicate that I want the source, which is the publication outlet, to be Harvard Business Review. So there, I'll put source Harvard Business Review. I actually have it for us. And I'm going to throw quotes around it so that we get this exact search, these exact search terms, rather than some sort of derivative of Harvard Business Review. We probably don't need that because it's such a specific name, but sometimes if you don't throw quotes and you don't get the exact phrase, you just get words within the phrase just kind of strewn about. You don't really want that if you have really commonly used words. And we can just have sustainability, maybe anything that mentions sustainability, because we want to see what other words might be used in the titles of these works that we could then incorporate into our search term or our search terms. Okay, so we see here in bold our terms that have been found, and Harvard Business Review is the outlet that we see for all of these searches, and here you see there's kind of this tack on Harvard Business Review digital article. It seems fine. Sometimes that matters, but not in this case. And sustainability tends to be something that is in the title that indicates that it's probably a good search term in and of itself. But we could look around and see if there's anything else. Here's our ESG again. ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Maybe other terms come up through this process. Maybe they don't. With burnout, if we return to our previous example, we just want to know what burnout is, how it's discussed in HBR as one high-quality practitioner-based outlet. We see that burnout is pretty consistently used in all these titles. Burnout is the term. Maybe we see burned out as well, but burnout in and of itself is a very commonly used term. Okay, so for the corporate sustainability example, we maybe derive more interesting synonyms, but for our burnout example, we'll just keep with the burnout term and not really add any more. We don't have to do the same thing for our independent variables with this particular example because we're looking at a cluster of independent variables. We want to know which ones are most strongly related to burnout, and therefore we don't know what those terms are yet. We'll find those in later parts of the search. But if you did have a specific independent variable and a specific dependent variable, like maybe you wanted to know what the relationship was between corporate sustainability and firm performance, then you would look for synonyms for both sustainability or organizational sustainability, corporate sustainability, ESG, and firm performance, organizational performance, profit, revenue, whatever else you wanted to use. So in any case, you'll try to create this sort of list of synonyms that might be helpful for your later searches.